Today on We Need to Talk, we have part two of our conversations about the animal that would dominate the world. Why would it be penguins or dogs or that other thing? We need to talk.
I would argue that the dominant species wouldn't change if humans disappeared. That humans aren't the dominant species right now anyway.
All right. Go on.
It's fungus.
Fungus? Mm-hmm. Why do you say that?
Because it's everywhere, and nothing in this world works without fungus. Mm-hmm. I think any other species disappearing, though it would break down and change the way that things work, I think if fungus disappear, and maybe a fungus bacteria combo, then we don't, nothing works and everything dies.
Okay. I could say you're correct that fungi are very important. It's definitely not a single species, but even going past that, they're essential for life on the planet. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that they are dominant. And you can kind of go a lot of different things for that too, like bacteria, and not that there's a single type of bacteria, but let's just say take any instance of bacteria that are important in gut health. Without them, things just get super fucked up. A lot of things are going to go wrong. Mosquitoes, another good instance there. The whole food chain is very, very intertwined. And if you get rid of one player, if it's a very essential player, things are going to get very messed up. Could they recover? I think so with time. Fungi would definitely fuck up humans, that's for sure. They'd fuck up a lot of other animals too. There's certain ants, for instance, that they will digest their food by essentially infecting it with a fungus, and the fungus will kind of do its thing. And then they eat the fungus, essentially. But it's hard to say that something's dominant just because it's essential. It's my rebuttal.
I mean, that's a good rebuttal, of course. Fungus, I talk to each other too, and they can reach out beyond their their physical space. So they have an aura around them, kind of, and they're able to communicate with each other to say there's a thing walking by, or there's a thing over here to break down, and spread in that direction. It's really cool.
I didn't know about the communication aspect. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, a lot of things have communication that we don't even think about. That's definitely one of them. So we've done bird, insects. What about a plant that's not a fungus type plant?
I would probably say, I'm trying to come up with something good here. Dandelions. I mean, they're pretty badass, right? I mean, it's they're pretty flowers. I mean, not the prettiest flowers, but they go under their reproduction. They turn into these cool little things that fly off. I can imagine that just going all over the place and inseminating the desert, inseminating the water, just everything.
Just all over the place insemination. Yeah, classic.
Yeah. Maybe some other plants. You want to. My mind just wants to go to carnivorous plants for some reason, but carnivorous plants aren't necessarily that big of a deal. I mean, and they're very specialized. They're very, very. I don't know. They are a niche, but I don't think they are dominant in any sort of respect. Probably something more obvious, like a tree. You could say trees are very successful evolutionary. I mean, look at United States or most other places. They tend to dominate, and one reason is because they're hard to eat. They're very effective. They grow tall. They can outcompete others. There's all these different factors that make them very successful and hard to outdo.
And they can take away a lot of resources by being able to go up high and then spread out while up there. You can take away the resources to anything down below, which we see in forests. You see other trees not able to compete with bigger, taller trees. I think Rush had a song about that.
Oh, yeah. The forest, I think it was.
I think it's the trees, but
The tree? Oh, yeah. I think the forest is another one. Huh. But it's something super interesting with that is all these trees have to come up with these super complex methods of reproducing because of that. Because if you're a tree, number one, if you have your offspring just kind of, let's say you have a seed and that seed just kind of falls like right where you are, like that's great and everything. But now your offspring competing with you, it's gonna have to like compete with the space, or it's gonna have to deal with the space or the shade that you're kind of casting down onto it. And you could say there's other trees that might be doing similar, like maybe another tree that's another, say, competitor to you drops a seed, and now it's gonna have a hard time. So a lot of different trees will come up with these different methods. Like easiest example is a helicopter, like those weird seed things that kind of go like kind of to spin around, and that way they can get further away from their source or parent. Another strategy with that too is like fruits. So fruits are usually a method to get an animal to eat you. That way they consume it, and then they poop out the seed somewhere farther away from the original source, because that way there's a greater chance of getting away from that competition. And fun fact, apparently a lot of seeds out in the wild, they are poisonous if you break them down. So like an apple seed, like crab apples, you can eat crab apples, but you don't want to eat the seeds because the seeds might actually poison you. So that's another way of nature kind of ensuring it gets, its progeny out there.
I think they have like cyanide in them or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly right.
But and they're also round, so that they can roll. A lot of the fruits, if you look at fruits in general, they're usually round or have like a roundness to them. Like apples aren't perfectly round like an orange is, but they're rollable. So that helps as well. But then you also have, symbiotic relationships with other animals, which, like, let's say one of these species becomes a dominant species that we're talking about. What does that mean for other species, and which other species will then do super good because of that and then be taken down because of that? Like, let's say sharks all of a sudden are the dominant species. Well, whatever sharks prey on will probably become even less dominant than they currently are. Or would they become more prolific because now the sharks actually need to raise them, like humans with cows? Maybe cows wouldn't be that big of a deal, or chickens, or whatever other things that we choose to grow, corn and wheat. Maybe those wouldn't be as big on the planet if that thing wasn't the dominant thing in charge. How does the landscape as a whole change because whatever becomes the dominant species?
It's really, really hard to predict, is what I'd say, because it's really dependent on the species, and it's also dependent on what that species decides to do. And I don't think it's ever going to be one set thing. Like, take humans for the last, say, 10,000 years. There's a lot of variation with human survival strategies. I mean, humans are, omnivores? Like, they eat whatever. And that's just very apparent. Like, wherever we are, we can find something to eat. And if we can't, we make something out of something, right? There's always a way. And I think it's really hard to predict that, because I don't think there's any way to predict what humans would have done. Most of the world's eating insects right now. Western world's not eating insects. That might change within the next 10 years, 20 years, if things happen. And then beyond that, there's certain technologies to make, say, like a burger out of poop, right? A poo burger. It doesn't sound very appetizing, of course, but if things get to the point where maybe the ethics of eating meat or maybe the economics of it aren't really justifiable, that could be something that could happen that wouldn't be predictable, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So I think it's just very, very hard to predict what would happen with little in humans, but any other species, because I would suspect there'd be a lot of variations if there was any sort of dominance.
No, and for sure. But I mean, we're not saying this is definitely at all. We're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and making random guesses. Because I mean, even like you're saying, when we're talking about plant-based meats, like that could change what happens when it comes to like what type of crops we grow or animals. Maybe we don't grow animals anymore the same way we have. So I agree with you. But I still think it's an interesting headspace to try and put yourself in. So we have octopus in the ocean. Is that, or did we think dolphin?
Let's say octopi.
And then we have what do we have for bird? Raven, crow,
Yeah, raven. Yeah.
And then we have ant or bee.
Yeah, let's say ant.
We have tree. Or did you want dandelion?
I like tree.
And monkey?
For like a primate,
Well, for land, just in general.
I think cat.
Like a bigger, like a complex creature, more complex than like an
Yeah.
ant or whatever. You think cat? What
Yeah.
about elephant?
I
Elephant's smart. They have that little nose that has fingers. They can use it like a hand.
Yeah, like
They also have emotional capacity that a lot of other animals don't have.
I think my hesitation with elephant is that elephants, I don't believe, have really dominated any sort of space. They do well at what they do, but a lot of past felines have been known to just like, wreck house, essentially.
So you think cat over monkey?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think we put too much importance on humans and the ape lineage being important. The fact that humans evolved intelligence is more just happenstance of these couple different like evolutionary circumstances. It's not like this lineage is destined for success or anything. It just happened to work out that way that, it's a long like little tirade I could get into, but there's many different things kind of led to that. You could say that maybe apes in general are more intelligent than other creatures, but there's also a lot to say that they're kind of dumb too. So it's, I don't know. I think we overvalue apes and monkeys and that lineage.
Is there any other more complex animal that we're not considering on land? Other than cat, monkey, elephant?
I'm sure there is, and whoever is listening to this at home is probably just like, you're forgetting about that. You're forgetting about that.
Yeah, they should comment it.
You could say, we already said dolphins. I mean, dolphins, that's technically a mammal. I don't know. I'm sure there's something. Dogs might be an example of something. And dogs are definitely social. They have that aspect. That's one thing that's kind of running against cats, is cats aren't very social, with the exception of lions. But the social aspect, there's some scientists out there, or maybe a couple, that say that sociability is probably a big factor that led to humans kind of gaining, say, their high intelligence levels.
Yeah. I think a lot of people say mushrooms too. Like they ate magic mushrooms and then that expanded their minds. Made them super smart. Like broke their brains.
I am probably more in favor of the evolutionary ideas. Because it's kind of like you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Because you can only have the like I could buy an argument that maybe we have that machinery that evolved, and the mushrooms kind of are like the seed that planted these new ideas that led to it. Because I think a lot of what humans are just like these passed on ideas, and I don't think the human back before like modernity, or let's say even just like basic civilization, would nearly be the same as us right now. We're just the fact that we can pass on ideas, and we had the correct ideas to pass down. I think that's kind of what is us. So maybe that's like a seed that can get planted, but I think you need the machinery there first for that seed to be plantable.
I'm not suggesting that they ate a mushroom and then grew a brain. I'm more suggesting, took something that altered the way that they thought. So, a monkey thought X way for all of eternity, and then took something that altered the way they thought, so they did a thing that they otherwise would never have done, say stick into hole or something like that. That becomes a tool, and then that kind of like starts to shape a change in the way that thinking can happen, because now this idea spawns an infinite amount of other ideas. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm not also suggesting monkey take mushroom, monkey go to moon, but a tiny little step that otherwise these two ideas would have never been bridged, and it was kind of the bridge between something to something new.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of the break in, say, tradition, culture. Maybe that's not it, but just normal behavior.
Yeah, exactly that. Now, we have all of these different places that could be ruled. The sky, the land, the ocean. What happens if they go to war? Who wins?
Are we talking like if all these things came to fruition?
Yeah. Yeah, so Raven owns the sky, and Tree owns the part of the land, and Ant owns underground. Mm-hmm. And then Octopus in the ocean, and then monkeys walking around. What happens? What if they teamed up? What if Monkey and Tree teamed up against Octopus?
I think ants would dominate.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because ants are fucking scary. Like, they can do some crazy shit. And they can just like they can destroy all the trees. They can just eat the trees and live inside the trees, Mm-hmm. The trees don't have a chance. I don't think trees can be very proactive. Maybe this changes with whatever evolution they go through or whatever. But I think
they just got to eat some mushrooms.
Yes. The trees will need to eat some mushrooms. Mm-hmm. So the ants just have an advantage over them. The ants can control wherever the birds are sleeping if they need to, right? Mm-hmm. They just produce so many of them, and this uncoordinated coordination, essentially.
But bird eat ant.
Yeah, but if you get swarmed, it's gonna be kind of tough. You can talk about armor and stuff.
Oh, like one bird gets swarmed by a bunch of ants?
Yeah.
What if one ant gets swarmed by a bunch of birds?
I mean, it's not a big deal because they can just produce more ants. Like, the big thing with ants is it doesn't take much resources to produce one ant, and one ant doesn't really mean much, but the swarm is kind of everything.
I feel like Octopus would win, because I think Octopus would be able to find a way to like overcome the ants. Like ants ants are kind of like zombies. They have the mass numbers, and that's what makes them scary. But I think Octopus has the brain, and that's what's gonna overcome. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's my bias, like you said, of putting too much emphasis on intelligence over other aspects that could make you dominant.
Mm-hmm. I think octopi would be like they wouldn't win. They would just kind of be defensive. Like, I don't think other places would be able to touch the sea. I don't think the birds would really be able to do much. Like a little like attrition war, but I think the sea would just be theirs essentially.
Maybe whoever teams up with Octopus ends up winning.
Yeah. Who would be the first to team up with them?
Probably Bird.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Bird or Tree. 'Cause I don't think Ant would, and I don't think Cat would, because Cat don't like water.
So, it looks like Octopi and Tree? Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we found our winners.
I hope that answered your question, Carl. If humans don't exist, what becomes the dominant species? Octopus plus Tree. That's science, baby. But surely there's something we forgot of, right?
Probably.
What would you suggest people do if they're yelling at their TV right now because they watch our podcast on TV for some reason?
Well, I suggest you go to the YouTube player that you're on right now, hit subscribe, leave a like, and then comment right in that little comment section. Say, hey guys, you missed this. Talk about this. It could be about what we're talking about right now. It could be something else. Who cares, right? We'll talk about anything. Love, life, pursuit of happiness. Or if you don't have YouTube, that's also fine. We got a Twitter, twitter.com/WNTT1, or facebook.com/We Need to Talk Show.
I love that. That was brilliant. Well done. You got all the letters right. And I agree. So what about could there ever be another animal that did things like human? Wait, no. Better. I got a better question. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Which animal gets to space first?
I mean,
Is it bird? Because bird close to sky?
I guess that'd make sense. Like, it just flies up there.
Or is it monkey? Because monkey eat mushroom?
Oh, Meter. We need to talk.